Hi, my name is Vuyo and I'm running for equality and diversity. I aim to bring down any barriers that may stand between you and loving your time in Leeds. These may include physical barriers. I want to improve accessibility for disabled students around campus. Financial barriers. I want to fight for more scholarships and bursaries for those students who are feeling the financial burden university brings to us all. I want to bring down emotional barriers. I want to increase awareness of mental health among students and those who feel discriminated against. I would also like to celebrate our differences. I want to increase awareness and participation of multicultural events. We need more events that cater for student parents, part-time students, and mature students. I want to increase participation of already honoured events, like Black History Month, LGBT History Month.
Next up, can we have Robin Brocky, please?
Hi. Forgive me for my voice, it keeps breaking up on me. I'm president of LUU Disability Society, Women's Officer on NUS Disabled Students Campaign, and I've attended several NUS conferences, including winning last year's election to attend NUS National Conference. This means I've contacts throughout the UK and NUS. I was personally involved in the introduction of trolleys in the refectory and accessible PC stations in the campus coffee bars. My manifesto is based on my experience and knowledge, and I research my promises before publication. My connections and positive working relationships with people throughout the university have enabled me to become involved in important issues, such as the development of a new undergraduate library. Please read my manifesto at robinbrocky.me.uk to see why I am the only candidate for Equality and Diversity Officer. Thank you.
Very much, Robin. Next, can we have Yafit elbow him up to the stage, please?
My name's Yafit, and here's why you should vote for me for E&D. Across campus, you would have seen my puzzle pieces, and here's what they stand for. The first piece is for awareness. Chinese New Year was on January 23rd. Where were the signs in the foyer? Where were the dragons in the terrace? Where was the Chinese beer in the old bar? This union recognises that there's a diverse student body at Leeds Uni, and therefore their festivals should be celebrated. The second piece is for community. There's close to 6,000 international students at Leeds Uni. This union promotes inclusivity and unity. The third piece is for family. This union should provide facilities that aid parents, students during their time on campus. There are many pieces of the puzzle that need to be put together. These are only 3 of many that I think are fundamental to students. So vote for Yafit to unite your union, and let's work on building the puzzle together.
Thank you very much. Can I now invite Charlie Hopper up to the stage, please?
Hello, can I do that? Thanks. This time last year, you elected me because of my ideas, and I've delivered on them. I've made sure more students get better bursaries from 2012 onwards. That doesn't make 9k fees fair, but it does make Leeds a fairer place for students who've got less money. You should vote to re-elect me because postgrad fees need to be fairer and much more transparent. No one should be put off education because of the price tag, and every student at Leeds should know what they're getting for the cost of their fees. You should vote to re-elect me because disability and dyslexia services need to get better in your schools so that you can get the direct support where and when you need it. You should vote to re-elect me because I'm still the best candidate for the job. I've been through the learning curve. I know what doesn't work, and I've learned the hard way what does work. And I know what work needs to be done next year. Our university is a fantastic place, but equality is more than a one-year game. You should vote to re-elect me. Don't stop the hopper. Thanks.
Next up, Rebecca Gelbert, please.
Hi everyone. I think that the union is a place where opportunities should be available to all and that everyone is entitled to an amazing experience at university. I think the union needs to improve on its levels of support by increasing staff and improving on the one-to-one sessions that we have, and it needs to promote inclusivity and to raise awareness of issues by educating its students and celebrating the cultural diversity of the union. A specific example of what I want to do is to improve disability access across the campus by appointing an official role of a person who would research this and continually try to improve the campus. Through my work with the International Student Office, I've seen the kind of fantastic support they offer students and the continual endeavour to improve their services. And this is the kind of dedication that I want to bring to the role. You can read all the other ideas I have in my manifesto. I have hundreds of ideas for the union. So vote Rebecca Gelbert for Rebecca tomorrow.
Next up, Margaret Maganga, please.
Hi. Hi, my name is Margaret Maganga, and I'm a third-year law student. Maggie, your choice. So I'm standing here before you because I believe we all share the same view that we're all created equal and should be treated equally. I have four main objectives that I want to pass on to you that, if elected, I would like to fulfill. One of them being introducing Paralympic sports into the varsity games. There's so many disabled students who are not able to take part in sports because we don't have a disability team. The Canadian Paralympic wheelchair basketball team is using our facilities for the training for the Paralympics in 2012, in the summer of 2012, but we don't have a team ourselves, so this definitely has to change. My other greatest objective is to bring about international, intercultural and integration, such as having big major events that include all cultures together. And as John Henry Newman once said, that a university is an assemblage of students from different parts of the world. Look around you. That is exactly true, and I want to increase
Margaret, I'm going to have to stop you there as you've only got 1 minute, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, Judith Snape, please.
Okay, I'm Judith Snape. When I first came to university, I was not a very confident student, and now I'm here today standing as your equality and diversity candidate. It's been a long journey, but one I can feel I can owe largely to the role that the union has played during my time here. This is why I feel so passionately about that every student gets the most out of their time here and that no one feels excluded. I want better access, better representation and better awareness. I want every student to feel included from day one, and I want the union to listen more to its members about how it could be more representative. I want the union to realise that cultural awareness is imperative, and it's a great way to celebrate our fantastic diversity. Last year, the impact report stated that 90% of students felt that the union positively contributed to their time at university. Let's make up that 10%. I am a driven and passionate person and always strive for the best, so vote Judith Snape #1 for equality and diversity.
Thank you very much. Next, I'm going to take questions for the officers. I've got a couple of questions here already, and I've got questions coming in from Twitter, but I will open questions to the floor. First question I'm going to open to you, Charlie. Free speech on campus is increasingly under threat amid fears of security and extremist ideologies. Free speech on campus is increasingly under threat amid fears of security and extremist ideologies. What would you do to protect and encourage the free exchange and debate of ideas at the university? You can pick up the microphones if you want.
So we already work with students really closely that are in activity societies. A lot of these students are really active in bringing kind of speakers and encouraging debate on campus, and our fantastic DevCos kind of work with them. Throughout the university, we keep really positive relationships with key university staff to make sure that students are allowed to organise events that they feel are critical for their own expression, but while at the same time making sure that other students don't feel their own views and their own safety is under threat.
Okay, brilliant. Margaret, can I go to you, please?
Hello? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, as the union, freedom of expression is a term most people don't understand. Just because you hold a strong view doesn't mean you're supposed to infringe on someone else's ideology. So, as an officer, I would ensure that the different, for lack of a better term, warring sides are actually encouraged to dialogue more, because dialogue actually helps people express their ideas. Yeah.
Thank you. Yafit, can I go to you, please?
Freedom of speech is very important, and therefore I do suggest that there should be speakers that come along, but working with the societies in order to make sure that they make sure that the speakers are people who come along and would try and not offend as many people as they could, in order to try and make sure that equality does.
Vuyo, can I go to you, please?
Hi. I think that we should create a safe platform for people to debate and share their ideas. So everyone has different views, everyone has different ideas, and people should have the opportunity to share them, but also in a safe environment. So I think we should create a platform, maybe a debate, somewhere to debate for these people to exchange their views in a safe and friendly environment.
Thank you. Rebecca?
I think it's important in terms of students that they feel like their voice is being heard and not being ignored. One of my policies was to create an open forum so that people could discuss ideas, as was already mentioned, in a safe platform. This would encourage people to discuss in a way that they wouldn't be out to offend people deliberately, and they would feel that their voice was being heard. In terms of inviting speakers onto the campus, I personally think that any speaker should be put to a vote in a referendum, and if a large majority of people decide that that person would be victimising or insulting a particular group of people on the campus, then as a union we should decide whether to allow those people to come and speak. So I think most of this relies on the referendum and what we decide to do as a student body.
Thank you. Judith?
Hello. I think freedom of speech is very important in campus today, and I feel that every student should feel that they have the right to invite whichever speaker they feel fit to the union. If this speaker was to be particularly controversial, I feel that the students should have a vote on whether they feel that the speaker should have the right to express their views on union or not.
And then finally, Robin.
On speakers, we already have a policy that certain groups are not allowed to be invited onto campus. I think that's an important thing to maintain and to review regularly. I also believe that the university has a mutual dignity and respect policy, and that the union also has guidelines on this. I'd build on it with my campaign for education on anti-bullying and anti-hate crime, because I think people don't understand sometimes the offence that they can cause comes under these descriptions.
Thank you. Can I just remind the candidates to hold the microphones nice and close and speak slowly so that the viewers watching the live feed can hear everything you say. The next question, I'm going to come to Yafit first, and it's, how does your manifesto address the concerns of disabled students?
Disability is one of the pieces of the puzzles that should fit into the puzzle, and I believe that disabled students should have equal opportunities within the union. Accessibility is very important, and there's already great accessibility in the union, and it should continually be maintained and enhanced in the areas that it needs to be.
Thank you very much. Vuyo?
I think we do have good facilities so far, but they do need improving. In my manifesto, I state that we need to improve facilities for disabled students. For example, the Red Route is one of the best or longest passages in the country. However, when you get to Roger Stevens, there's not much help or accessibility for disabled students there. So I feel that the university should help the union in improving this.
Thank you. Next, we go to Judith.
I feel that every student should have the right to have...
Sorry about that, if you want to go again.
I feel that every student should have the right to gain accessibility to this union, and without that, then it's not a free and equal union. I feel that the accessibility for disabled students could be improved a bit, such as in essentials, where at peak times it can get incredibly busy and the aisles are quite narrow. So in that respect, there's areas where it does need to be improved.
Thank you. Margaret?
My biggest... The issue that my manifesto addresses about disabled students is to include Paralympic sports in the varsity games. Just to expand on that, equality in sports also means that we should have a disability sports team. Different disabled sports, we could have wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby, goalball, and so forth. So having this, and we could have tournaments, and it gives disabled students an equal chance to excel in sports as well. Another thing is to increase funding and to make sure that disabled students' allowance or any funding they get for their disability is not capped due to the recession or any reason afterwards. And another thing also is to increase funding for the students who need 24-hour carers, because some of the carers live in dilapidated accommodations, hence they're not able to enjoy life as normal students.
Thank you. Next, Robin.
I think all disabled students who are aware of the society probably already support me, thankfully. You know that I know about disabled students' issues. I'd like to actually comment on the DSA issue. There is no current issue with funding for disabled students' allowance. As an NUS committee member, I've been assured of this at the highest possible level, and there is no chance of it being touched in the near future. I'd also like to comment on equality services so that everybody's aware of this. They are being forced to move from the social sciences building, the red doors where they're currently situated. They are being asked to move to the Worsley building. This is highly unfair. Disabled students will have to travel to the far end of campus to access services. Not only that, but the Worsley building is a medical building, which has implications in terms of the medical and social model. For those who don't know, basically, you're telling students who are often upset with the medical services available to them to go to a building that they're not comfortable with.
Thank you. Charlie?
Hi, so when I got elected last year, I started working on accessibility in the union. And we noticed two major strands where students were having an unequal experience of our building here. So one's structural, so that's kind of like the lifts that aren't working in the clubs. So we've now ordered new lifts for stylists so actually everyone can get to the dance floor. The second is aesthetic. Students can have a really different experience of a lovely building in the foyer, and then some of the access routes behind the scenes are just not as nice, and they're not as branded, and they're not inclusive. So these projects are kind of ongoing, and what I'll carry on doing if I'm elected next year. My manifesto points to the fact that disability services are fantastic, but they don't match up in schools. Staff in schools aren't having the contact with students that they need to, and students aren't getting the support as locally. And just to kind of clarify, just in case there was concern, the last update I had, disability services was not due to move to the Worsley building. That has in fact been overridden because of the issues with it. It is up for moving because actually the area for the service is potentially not the size and the scale that they need.
Thank you, Charlie. Rebecca?
Hello? Yeah. Okay.
I've talked about two areas in my manifesto. As a lot of us have mentioned, disability access across the campus is a really key issue. This is why I mentioned in my speech that I'd like to create an official role where an individual will conduct research into the accessibility of the campus. For instance, very little research has been done into sensory impairment and accessibility in the campus. I think this is an area that really, really needs to be addressed. Secondly, I'd like to look at accommodation and take this out to the Leeds City Council and try and improve accommodation for disabled students, and also work with Unipol and student accommodation. One issue, I think, is that if disabled students need to go back into student accommodation because they can't find any housing outside in Leeds, then when they go back, they still aren't allowed to submit and say that they'd like to live with their friends. So I think this is an issue that needs to be addressed. So I would like to work closely with student accommodation and Unipol to try and rectify this, or at least improve the variety of rooms that are available to students.
Thank you. Next question, I'm going to come to Robin on first. It's, should students coming to study in the UK pay higher fees than students from the UK?
This is a tricky one, isn't it? I believe that, in all honesty, they have not been paying into our tax system, which in the first instance is how our education system is funded. I'm not sure what the best way of charging international students is. I don't like the fact that as soon as they finish their degree, I think their visas are up fairly quickly and they have to leave. Perhaps if there was a fairer system where if they've been educated here, they were allowed to stay for a reasonable length of time so that they can actually put that into practice here to benefit the nation as well as their own country when they go back. There's lots of options there, but I do think it needs a lot of more consideration than just whether or not they should be charged more.
Thank you. Margaret?
As Robin said, this is a tricky one. But as an international student, apart from paying, for example, 9,000 fees, or well, the local students will start paying the same thing, but as international students, you're paying 9,000 fees. On top of that, there's airfare for you to come here, as well as application for your visa. There's also, that's also a cost. So if you increase the students' fees, it almost seems unfair because you have other added costs. So I don't think they should be higher than normal students.
Thank you. Yafit?
Like I said, hello?
Yeah.
Like I said, there's close to 6,000 international students already at Leeds. However, the fees are very high, and it only allows a certain type of person to come over and study in the UK. And I think that if the fees are going to stay at the cost that they are, I think that there should be some kind of grant or a bursary from the university or from other sources that could possibly help them with the fees for students who could not possibly get the money from other resources such as family or other things or other people.
Thank you. Rebecca?
As has been mentioned, it's quite a contentious issue, especially with the added costs of visas and flights, travel, etc. What we need to remember is that international students are hugely important to Leeds University, and in terms of what different students from different backgrounds can bring to the university as a whole, they are really highly valued, as is every student on the campus. Therefore, you could argue that they should be paying the same amount as the other students, especially considering the extra costs that they will incur.
Thank you. Next, Judith.
I don't believe that the international students should pay any more than English students for their tuition fees. I personally studied in France myself, and I knew if the tuition fees were more than they were in England, I'd definitely think twice about studying there. I think it stops everyone from having a chance to study in England and also creating a great international atmosphere at our university.
Thank you. Charlie?
I don't think that international students should pay higher fees than UK students, especially now that government has cut so much of undergraduate funding. Students are getting exactly the same education, and actually a lot of times international students are getting a lot worse provision. So I think that undergraduate fees should be exactly the same. Postgraduate fees receive no government funding directly, and exactly the same for here. I think international students bring a wealth of rich to this university, and we should encourage it more.
Thank you. Finally, Vuyo.
I don't think international students should pay more fees. Leeds University and the UK is about equal opportunity for everyone. So I think that international students should have an equal opportunity to come here and study. And as has been mentioned before, with visa payments and flights, the costs all add up, and it adds up to almost more than home students anyway.
Thank you very much. We only have a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to open to questions on the floor. I'd also like to remind audience asking questions that questions cannot be targeted to a specific candidate. So firstly, can go to the gentleman at the back, please.
In the current economic and political climate, resources for minority groups are constantly under pressure, so this is clearly the worst time to be inexperienced in this position. With that in mind, what experience are you going to bring to this position? I'm
going to start with Charlie. What experience will you bring to this position? Under the current economic climate, there's a lot less funding for equality and diversity, so what experience do you bring to the position?
I'm really pleased to say that the union's actually an anomaly. We've got more money for postgraduate students, international students, mature students, part-time, and students with dependents this year than ever before. I've been working on our commitment to these groups of students for the past year, and I plan to continue doing so. Within the university, I'll continue to work with the Quality Services and ensure that they get continued budget from the university. And obviously we've got a wider commitment to Leeds, to the local area, and to supporting funds for minority groups nationally. And I'll continue to use my connections that I've built this year to do so.
Thank you. Judith?
Well, firstly, I'm a really driven and passionate person, and I want every student to get the most out of this union. I was also secretary of the Spanish Society during my second year, so I know how the union works and I understand what needs to be done. I really want every student to really get the most out of this place, and I will work with every student and listen to every student about how they feel that the union could do more for their students.
Thank you. Rebecca?
The kind of experience I have is, for instance, working for the International Student Office. I sort of coordinated and hosted events and generally acted as a support advisor, helping international students during their first month or so at university. I also currently work in the Study Abroad office, helping the temporary international students and advising current students. And on top of that, I'm involved with various committees and been a student ambassador at the English Society. So I've got experience in talking to people, organising events, and generally being able to liaise with different people. In preparation for this role, I've been speaking to the heads of, for instance, the Equality Services, Disability Services, International Office, Lifelong Learning Centre, etc. And what I've really learned is that communication is so key to this role, that all of these organisations, especially in terms of funding, they desperately need to communicate between themselves and find out where it's best that the funding be spent. And I think what they've all said is that for the Equality Diversity Officer role needs to be patient, needs to be willing to listen to all these different people, and needs to take an interest. And that's something I definitely want to do, and I would be incredibly dedicated to this role, and would love the opportunity to work with all these services and to ensure that they provide the best services that they can.
Right, can I go over to Margaret, please?
My experience is I'm currently the culture rep, so I'm in charge of over 36 different cultural groups. So working with different international students from different parts of the world, you get to listen to what some of the hurdles they have, like, for example, issues with banking, accommodation, or even sometimes it just comes to a question of basic stereotypes that people ask you, oh, you're from this country, so you guys do this and that. It's issues like this that I'm able to deal with, and I've been able to help students and talk to them, made friends from different places. Hence, that I would say I'm well aware of the issues international students have as well as disabled students, because I'm quite passionate about both things.
Okay, thank you. Vuyo?
I'm currently the treasurer of FOBSOG, Faculty of Biological Sciences. Last year we had a revenue of £20,000 with 600 members, and I've been in charge of controlling this budget this year. I think that gives me enough experience to control. I know the union probably has a much bigger budget than £20,000, but I think that I'm able to control this kind of budget and bring that experience as a treasurer here to help issues close to my heart.
Thank you. Yafit?
As a theology and religious studies student, I have a vast knowledge of different religions and cultures, so therefore can understand their needs. I'm also the treasurer of the Theology and Religious Studies Society, so I also know how to work with budgets, although maybe not as big, but I also know how to work with budgets and work with teams, and like the others said, communications is key, and I'm willing and wanting to communicate with all other societies and people in order to make sure that everyone's needs are met.
Robin?
I'd like to ask you to read my manifesto regarding my actual experience. It goes way beyond what's even on there, but that hopefully will give you a good idea. But basically, I don't think that any one person can fulfil the role of Equality and Diversity Officer without some help. I don't know the issues facing every student on campus. I can't possibly. So I want to have part-time reps in a similar way that we have activities reps for sports and societies. And these reps would then be able to support our diverse groups across the campus. They'd be able to feed back information, and it would be somebody that students can go to without having to talk to anybody directly in the union. And I also obviously have UK, national and local contacts that I think I can use to deal with this.
Thank you. We are very short on time, so we're going to take one more question from the floor, and then, but if candidates could keep their answers pretty short. I'm going to come to Harriet on the front row, please. If Liv could just pass it along. Joys of wires.
Sorry to be difficult. It's a short question, really. If you could sum up the overall purpose of the role in one sentence, what would the sentence be and why?
I'm going to come to Vuyo first.
To give everyone an equal opportunity for success in university.
Yafit?
I think inclusivity and equality is the key to the union's success, and I think that that's the role that I should play to help everyone feel included within the union.
Robin?
I believe in equality for all whilst maintaining individuality.
Thank you. Margaret?
I'd like to say just equality and diversity, but that's too cliche. So I'll just say inclusivity of every individual student, being proud of where you come from, celebrating that, at the same time not having any boundaries for fulfilling your goal as a student.
Rebecca?
To represent its students and make sure that their voices are heard and their issues are being dealt with.
Judith?
To eliminate integration and celebrate... eliminate exclusion and celebrate integration.
Charlie?
To represent the voice and needs of every single student on campus, to make sure everything we do works for everybody.
Brilliant. I'd like to thank the candidates for their question time. Next up is the welfare position. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome back to Question Time analysis section. These were the Equality and Diversity Officers who look after your fairness and inclusivity in the union. We had a total of 7 candidates with the current exec running for re-elections. We had some brilliant ideas put forward from the candidates, such as the setting up of the Peace Room and reopening of the Peanut Gallery, alongside having Paralympic sports in the Varsity Games, which has received some positive feedback from Twitter. Up next, we've got the welfare officers, so stay tuned.